time for Dave 101.
All right, let's get right to it because the Bigfoot community should be embarrassed for itself, especially right now. Why? David Paulides, the head of Missing 411 and the Can-Am Missing Project, a man who works very, very hard. He's a friend of this show's. Recently, like yesterday, had to cancel an appearance at Squatchfest in Washington State. Why? Well, let's tell you. This is his announcement. It is with enormous sorrow that I announce I won't be attending the conference in Kelso, Washington at the end of this month. I received an email outlining a serious threat to Angie, who is his wife, and me, David, both at the conference at our hotel. The letter outlined a threat coming from a section of the Bigfoot community who are not stable individuals. The email was given to the conference organizers, and they give it to the Cowlitz County Sheriff and the police chiefs of Longview and Kelso. I spoke to a private security firm that regularly provides security for the event. They told me that this was the first time that they could ever remember where law enforcement refused to supply deputies and officers for an event. They didn't understand why. We live in very, very crazy times where life doesn't seem to be valued by some groups of individuals. Without a law enforcement present at the event, and out of a need to protect Angie, myself, and attendees, I canceled my appearance at Squatchfest. I feel sorry for the people who had made plans to attend and visit with us. This threat came late in the process, and I didn't have time to rally the support we needed for a safe event. This won't happen again. I appreciate each and every one of you. David Paulides. How sad is that? Somebody from within the Bigfoot community who does not like his work, allegedly, has decided to make death threats against Paulides. Now, David Paulides is a very, very controversial figure. He's an ex-police officer, detective, worked 20 years on the force. He has worked with MUFON. He has worked on the Missing 411 cases. And you know what? The strength he has shown to continue his work after the passing of his son, Ben, last year, who was his best friend and co-owner of Can-Am Missing. It's amazing that he is still going. Now, the fact that someone would openly threaten him really should be a black eye on the Bigfoot community. Now, I know there was people like Steve Ishdahl from How to Hunt, as well as Washington, Idaho Bigfoot Society researchers and organizers, Nate Rudd and his team, who are willing to provide security for Paulides, which he politely turned aside, preferring law enforcement handle it, being former law enforcement of himself. But what does this say about how unstable the Sasquatch community is? It's not very cool. It's not professional. And this is what happens when you don't have a rule book, you don't have a governing committee, and you have people who, just because they don't agree with you, are out to do you harm. Look, the Can-Am project that David has been working on the last number of years, and the books he has written are highly controversial, as I stated. It involves a lot of weird happenings. It involves real people. People who have disappeared, vanished, gone missing, without a trace, never to be seen again. Sometimes their bodies even reappear. It also takes pot shots at forest rangers, the rules for national parks where they do not have a count of how many people go missing annually, law enforcement, government officials. He's on very, very many radars. And rightfully so. Somebody has to call out the information. Somebody has to take the opportunity to say, this is what's going on. Then there is a part of the community that is very jealous of David Paulides. Why? Because he's making a career off of this. He's making money. And for some reason, anybody who makes money in the paranormal community, in the Bigfoot community, the cryptid community, the UFO community, they are hated for it. Personally, I applaud him for being able to make a career of something that he loves. And that goes for anybody, whether they're making a few $100s a month or they're making $200,000 plus a year. I think it's fantastic if you get to do what you want for your livelihood. The idea that someone would take the time because of disagreements with whom he is or what David Paulides stands for is obnoxious, it's obtuse, it's wrong. Of course, it's illegal. And everybody in the UFO community should, the Bigfoot community should be banding together regarding this to find out who the individual or individuals are, if they are indeed part of the Sasquatch community. If they are part of that community, they need to be banished. They should not be allowed at events. They should not be allowed to speak. And it should be put all over social media that they were giving death threats. We don't need that in this community. We don't need anybody taking pot shots like that. You can disagree all you want. I don't agree with people who are conducting opinion over science. I don't believe that Sasquatch is a monkey or the great ape. And I think anybody who limits themselves to that is not doing anything heroic for moving the entire species and research forward. We have to be better than this. And it's funny because all we want in this field is credibility. We want credibility to say Sasquatch is real, UFOs are real, ghosts are real. We want our neighbors, our friends, our family, our coworkers, and anybody who will listen to believe us. Yet, when garbage like this is pulled, it shoots down the entire community for being the oddball rejects that many of us are, myself included. It doesn't do us any good. Now, we can only hope that this will be investigated to the full extent of the law, and hopefully the person who did send this email does get prosecuted one way or another. Whether it's a fine or more, that's up to a judge. But it is asinine to think that it is coming down to death threats in the Sasquatch community. David Paulides is one of many voices of what is going on. The only thing he is guilty for is making a living off of something he enjoys researching. He lets the evidence take him where he needs to go, like any good researcher should. It doesn't matter whether you believe in the woo or whether you believe in your opinion or you believe in science. That's what it's all about. And if you have a hard time accepting that, you need to leave the community. You have to. There is no in between. There is no moving forward. And the organizers of that event, as well as other events, need to do better. to protect people like David Paulides, not just him, but every speaker that is there. Because when one becomes a target, eventually more become targets. And there are unstable people within the Sasquatch community, the ghost community, the UFO community. And unfortunately, sometimes people have a habit of always wanting to one-up the previous person. And we don't need that kind of violence or threats within a great community that has a lot of fun chasing monsters. Anybody who is anybody in this field, whether you are an amateur or whether you are a professional like Paulides, has one thing in common. It's really cool to say we're monster chasers. We're monster hunters. Let's just have fun with it. Let's hope the law takes over what they need to do. And let's hope that this person is outed so that way they could be banned from the community and conferences so nobody else has to worry about violence moving forward. That is your Dave 101. Do me a favor, if you're on YouTube watching this on replay, leave a comment below and tell me what you think.